Hello everybody and welcome to my review of volume number 11 of Reki Kawahara's light novel series, Accel World. Now, this one of course is the return to the main storyline after volume 10's out of sequence short stories. And we find of course Haruyuki is being brought before the Kings of Pure Color to be judged whether he managed to get rid of the armor of catastrophe. We of course know that he did, so it's really no spoiler to tell you that that's the fact. And I mean, really, it's like in the first couple pages anyway, so it doesn't really spoil much. And so, thing is that once they are like, yeah, you're cool, man, you're cool. There's no more evil stuff. But hey, you know what? While you're at it, now that we're not going to kill you or anything and hunt you down like a dog, how about you do us a favor and learn some amazing ability so that you can take on that angel that could vaporize all of us so that we can get to those bad guys in that tower. How about you do that for us? Because I mean, you want to owe us a solid, right? I mean, all we did was threaten to kill you and wipe you out of the accelerated world. I mean, come on. Come on. So, of course, Haruyuki says yes, because, I mean, yeah. I like Haruyuki's character. I've said it before that I like the fact that he's not Mr. Oh, I'm always OP. I like that he's got to work for the stuff that he gets. But his whole, sort of self-effacing thing of, he has every right to basically tell these dudes to go get stuffed, but he doesn't. I mean, I guess we can say that it's also because he recognizes the threat that the Accelerated Research Society is posing to the accelerated world, so he's kind of like, whatever I can do to help get rid of those guys so that we can all live and learn each other's feelings through our fists. I like this series. I really do. I don't know why I'm feeling so punchy tonight as I'm recording this video, but I really do like this series, but there's some hokiness to this series. You can't get away from it. And volume number 11 brings the hokey back. There's a couple of parts of this book that I really liked. When I enjoy this series the most when it's getting into things like the history of the accelerated world, the mysteries of the accelerated world, and even when it's kind of diving into examining characters, why they are the way they are, why their avatars exist the way they do, their broken, tragic, horrible backstories, which this time we get, and that is Utai, who is Ardor Maiden. We find out what horrible event led to her not being able to speak, and pretty much informed exactly why her avatar is the way it is, including, well, I won't spoil it, but the coloring of it plays a factor, which some of you will probably go, that is kind of hokey, honestly. But nonetheless, it still goes a long way to developing the characters. That's the one thing that I like that this book takes time to do, is that it does give each of these characters a background. It does give each of these characters sort of a reason to continue to want to be in the accelerated world. The whole fact that these personal traumas and hurts and everything else inform their forms inside the accelerated world makes it kind of interesting. And I always have fun sort of guessing why somebody is the way they are. In this book, we start talking a lot about metallic colors and why metallic colors even exist when, we already have the pure colors. So the book, again, it contains a lot of those elements I like. Background, we have a little bit more history. There's sort of this, there's these hints that the roots of the Accelerated Research Society could go all the way back to the very beginning of the accelerated world. So there's all of this sort of cool background stuff. That said, though, we also again have another volume of Haruyuki chasing after some ability. And as much as there's a part of me that's okay with that, because I would rather see the struggle instead of him just being like, hey, I'm super OP because I'm the main character and nothing's a challenge. I would much rather see him struggle and learn. I just find that sometimes it gets a little bothersome that he learns stuff by characters kind of telling him things that you think to yourself, you're like, he's been doing this for 8 months and you're just kind of getting around to letting him know about all this right now. Like, that just seems a little stupid, honestly. And I think that's probably the one, like, if, overall I like Accel World, I've already said that, and I've said it in a bunch of other videos too, but I think that's probably the one thing about this series that just, you kind of have to suspend yourself for a bit and just kind of take yourself away and just be like, yeah, okay, this is where we're just gonna shove that under the desk. And that's like those parts where characters try to explain why they haven't dealt with this before. Well, you weren't ready. Oh, we never really realized that a situation like this would come up, so we thought you should focus on other stuff that was more important. Oh, I just forgot. Yeah, I just didn't think that. Oh yeah, you just weren't strong enough back then. Like, it would have been a waste of time to tell you this really vital, incredibly important fighting technique that, you could have kicked tons of ass before this if you had just known. But yeah, you had to suffer first. Like, you had to lose and get all down on yourself, and you had to go through that before you could master this technique. Like, seriously, it's true story. It's true. I didn't just not tell you because I didn't know until the author suddenly needed me to know. No, it has nothing to do with that. No Deus Ex Machina here. No, suddenly I know stuff that I probably didn't know, like last volume. No, that's not happening. But really, it does happen, right? And I mean, that's kind of the one part of Accel World where I'm kind of, like, it doesn't ruin the series for me. I mean, at its heart, this really is. It is a series about, well, I mean, it kind of strikes me a lot of like your typical like shonen type fighting series. And I mean, really, that's what this is. I mean, we can dress it up with this whole like accelerated world and all this mystery and who created the accelerated world and why and who are these, originals and how did they get Brain Burst even to begin with and what did they know that none of us know. And even as much as I love that stuff, and that's kind of like part of what really brings me into this series, I have to admit that that's all really just window dressing. This really is about a fighting type show or book, where it's like characters just keep coming up against something new that's a challenge and they have to go find a way to level up. And that's what this series is. I mean, it really is. It's like your typical fighting type shonen anime, light novels, manga, it is. That's exactly what this is at its heart. And once you accept that, like I said, the inconsistencies and the why didn't you tell him this ages ago kind of stuff, you just kind of let it go because you know that, well, you couldn't have known because until the author decided that he was going to have this challenge, there was no reason for you to know. You just have to accept that that's going to happen. And once you accept that, then you can get through a lot of kind of hurdles in this. This one introduces a new sort of adversary for Haruyuki, which is Wolfram Cerebus, the Carbide Wolf, is what you see on this, which is the subtitle of this volume. And I will at least say that he's kind of an interesting character, and I liked sort of the personality that's starting to come through. I am interested to know his backstory. I suspect he is tied to the bad guys somehow. And I'm kind of disappointed by that, I think. Just because it would have been, I think, refreshing just to have this completely unaffiliated character that challenged Haruyuki in an entirely different way. And because if he wasn't tied into the villains, I think he could have an interesting background story, particularly when they start to hint at, what did they call it? Like the metal scar theory or something. You really do have to read it. It is, again, it's sort of an interesting element in terms of talking about why people turn out the way they do in the accelerated world, what kind of hurts and pains and traumas they bring into it. There's sort of this idea that metal colors The reason that they are metallic is it has to do with a hard shell, which kind of could go to explain why, even though Haruyuki, I mean, he can point out all sorts of things that were lousy in his life, being bullied, feeling fat and everything else. But in terms of the deep-seated trauma that resulted in the unique ability to fly, that's one thing that he really doesn't seem to know much about. And this book kind of brings this idea and theory into it as to why he could be kind of so ignorant about himself, which, when you read about Haruyuki's character, I mean, so much of his path to getting stronger is about self-awareness and self-observation. So you kind of are like, how can you be so clueless about what it is that's caused you to have all these inner hurts and stuff? Well, this book goes to kind of explain some of that. All in all, I mean, the truth is, volume number 11 is exactly what Accel World is. It's giving you exactly what Accel World has given you for many volumes before this. It's got some quite good fight scenes to it. That's one thing that I always kind of am impressed with Kawahara. I mean, his sword fights in SAO aren't bad, but the actual fist to kicking and stuff fighting that you see in these volumes is really well done. And the fact that he's able to have every character sort of have their own unique fighting style based on their avatar, it creates very interesting and dynamic fight scenes, which are always a little bit unique because every character, like I said, is quite different. I do enjoy the fact that we have a main character who, like I said, even though it creates some bumps in the road, overall, I like the fact that we have a character who is on a journey as opposed to he is just OP and is just waiting for the next challenger to kind of just walk all over them. So I do like that about the series. I wish this volume had had a little bit more of the background lore of the accelerated world, but I don't think we're really going to get that until this whole arc of the ISS kits is dealt with. So I'm kind of looking forward to that, kind of being over if that's the case, because like I said, the main story of Accel World is why this thing exists, how it exists, who created it, and why. And it really feels like we've gotten away from that a lot. And every time we kind of touch on it, I think, oh, this is really cool. This is why I was drawn into this series. And I kind of wish we would get back to that. So I'm kind of hoping that once we deal with this whole ISS kits and this accelerated research society thing, that, maybe it'll go more into the lore of Accel World. Like I said, this volume begins to kind of hint at that the two may be a bit connected. So, I mean, only time will tell. So I know I'm kind of slagging a little bit on this volume. Like I said, I'm a little punchy as I'm recording this video. I don't know, but overall, I liked it. I mean, Accel World, I always find is just an enjoyable read. I always just kind of, blow through the volumes fairly easily. They draw me in quick enough. Like I said, there's always some good pacing with the battle scenes, and they're always rather unique. It's never like there's any two fights that are exactly the same, even when you've got opponents facing each other that have never done, that have done so before. Like, Silver Crow and Ash Roller, like their battles are always different, even though we've seen them fight each other a bunch of times before. So all in all, volume number 11 of Accel World. If you really like Accel World, there's no reason that you won't like this one. It does start to move the plot at least a little bit forward, but where it does kind of stall it because we've got to get Haruyuki to learn some new skill. So now this one does end on a cliffhanger again. So, we're into these sort of longer arcs like what we just did with the whole like rescue of Ardor Maiden. So Accel World number 11, those are my thoughts. It's still a series that I enjoy, even though I can poke some fun at it. And if you've enjoyed it to this point, it's still a good one to keep up with. So for my next review, I'm going to go way back. I mean, it's not way back because it's not like it's an old series, but I've done a bunch of reviews of J-Novel Club stuff on this channel, and one series that I've never touched, even though I've had it on my iPad since just about the time that J-Novel Club began, because it was one of their launch titles, I've never gotten around to reading it. And I've had so much fun with more of the sort of supernatural set in our world type stuff, as opposed to like the isekais and video game based ones, I thought now's the time. Plus the fact that volume number 3 has recently released in Japan, and J-Novel is currently releasing it in installments on their website, which means we'll get the ebook eventually. I thought, you know what, now's a good time. Now's a good time, and that's going to be volume number 1 of Occultic 9. Yeah, so just something I'm hoping it's going to be quite different, because I like that. That's what keeps everything fresh and keeps me loving light novels. So if you're brand new to the channel and you love light novels, you should consider subscribing. I do 2 to 3 reviews every week, not to mention my weekly countdown of the best-selling light novels in Japan. Thanks so much for joining me in this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.